Hello, good morning, everybody. Persons have joined. And now we can start. Today's session will be on the restructuring of Indian power sector, or in other words, we often say it as power sector reforms in India. How many of you are aware of this? You can give me some details in your chat box. How many of you are aware of power sector reforms in India? I can see your responses in the chat box. Yeah, Sachin Shankar replies that there is many amendments and acts about electricity reforms. That's very correct. But this is not the whole story about what has been happening in our country since last 3 decades. It's part of that restructuring process that some acts and amendments have been carried out. So precisely we shall be discussing about what has been the need of carrying out reforms in power sector. What was the pressing need that the government of India felt that now this is the right time or quite late that we have to carry out reforms in Indian power sector industry. In the last few sessions, you have seen that the requirement of electricity is increasing day by day, month by month, year by year. And the policymakers at the government side, they are formulating different strategies to make the demand and supply gap less or make our countrymen more power rich, more energy efficient, but somehow the desired goal is not realized. In fact, we are getting power hungry, be it in the industrial sector, agriculture, domestic, commercial, everywhere there has been a growing demand, and that demand could not be met due to some or other reasons. Because of that, the World Bank assisted power sector reforms were carried out in the year 91-92 after the central government outlined its policy in its budget that now it's time that we shall allow private participation or the private industries will participate and we shall carry out certain restructuring in the power sector. So this is broadly known as power sector reforms. But before discussing these things, I think something more regarding the advent of Indian power industry, how this industry evolved. Can any of you mention that when our country had the first kind of distribution system carried out, or at which place? You can give your responses by opening your mics also. Unmute yourself. When did we start our first power distribution center in our country?
Sir, it was under the British rule in some hilly area, I guess.
under British rule at which place?
So the place I don't know, but it was on hilly area, I remember.
Hilly area. Okay. Any idea about the year in which it was launched? Anyway, any other? Bangalore, 1895, 1905. Kolkata, yeah. Sanchit Vishwakarma says that it was done in Kolkata. It is not going to be the hilly area. So Kolkata was the first place where a kind of a small distribution system was set up by the British India, and they started providing supply to the local population. There is no doubt about that. So most of you, I think, should be aware that it was the capital of British India. Kolkata was the capital of British India, and all the major work of the government, British India government, were conducted from Kolkata. Power generation in India with a small hydro plant. It was the hydro plant that was operating in Darjeeling. 7, the total installed capacity, as I have told you earlier also, it was 1362 megawatt. In 1948, the Electricity Supply Act, Indian Electricity Act, instance, and you can go through this. You will have a brief idea about how the major landmarks. I wanted to show you something more, but right now I am not able to get it. Yeah, so growth after independence. Before we gained independence in 1947, electricity was predominantly a domain of princely states. What was happening in the pre-independence stage, that private companies like Tata's in Mumbai, or it was known as Bombay at that time, and in many other places where licenses were allotted to different princely states, and only private players were operating because the cost of investment was quite high, and not all could bid for this, and the things were totally in control of British India government. So whatever we could do in case of power sector, it could be achieved after independence, especially related to the rural areas. There was no stress in order to illuminate the rural India. All the big states, princely states, and their rulers who thought that power is very much required, they preferred it and they went for it for their own. So it was a kind of elite driven system. I mean, there was no benefit to the common citizen, and people who were fortunate enough to be part of a big state or princely state, they could enjoy the availability of power. And largely it was a luxury at that time. In synchronism with the policy of soft socialism that we adopted on achieving independence, public sector entered the field of electricity. Industrial Policy Resolution of 1956. It was the first policy resolution draft of Government of India. It gave birth to state electricity boards and regional electricity boards. Out of this came up the state electricity board, power corporations, now we call them, because all state electricity boards have been dismantled and we have covered the full circle. The situation is again going to be somewhat akin to what was happening in previous days. So mid 70s and early 80s saw emergence of public sector organizations like NTPC, NHPC, Power Grid Corporation of India, and all that. Growth of power installed capacity in first 50 years is not much, but still we could start from scratch, you can say. One table is given. Despite having grown by more than 60 times after independence, ours is one of the lowest per capita consumption. Yeah, you all know that India is among the lowest in consuming the electricity. Although private sector has remained a partner right from innovation of electricity, having attracted such household names as Tata Electric Company, Calcutta Electric Company, Ahmedabad, Ambala Electric Company, Lahore, but the share of private sector since independence has grown from just about 3% to 21% in generation and 12% in distribution. Now, as I told you that initially it was all from princely states, those states who were very eager to have electricity in their area, they somehow could install some kind of generating units and distribution network so that major cities could be supplied with some electricity. But these were all advanced, or you can say modern cities at that time, like Calcutta, Bombay, Lahore, Ahmedabad, so on and so forth. And the penetration of electricity was only confined to the urban areas. Now, this was the situation that needed a lot of reforms in our country. And once we attained independence, the government of India started many things on many fronts, like the industrialization of our country, setting up of many generating stations, thermal power, hydroelectric, and so on. But still, some part of the generation or even distribution was allocated to the private sectors. They were not totally removed, but I must mention at this point that the incentives were not given to the private sector in order to kind of expansion related to Indian power industry. They were discouraged. There were many licensing arrangements which were not easy to obtain. So as you can see that the growth has been very low in the initial stages. From 1362 megawatt in 1947 at the time of independence we could hardly get double or 100% growth almost in 1955 in 8 years. I mean, such was the conditions in the free India at the time of independence that we could not establish many things simply because of lack of funds. Thereafter, it gained substantially in 60s and 70s. You can see from the graph itself, up to 2000, we could almost achieve 1 lakh megawatt of addition. Now, this is a graph that gives us an idea about the annual growth in installed generation for different countries. You can see. And where does India rank? It is 5.14. The annual growth has been very low in comparison to the industrialized countries. And that is basically the reason why India has all sorts of problems related to its power sector. Some of these problems we have already taken up. Now, per capita consumption, you can see it is very low. Installed capacity in 50 it was 1700 megawatt, 60 we had 4600 megawatt. This gives a better picture. This has been the state of affairs in Indian power sector. Now, what went wrong with the Indian power sector that finally in the year or in the early years of the last decade of the last century, we could not sustain, or our country could not sustain the same structure that was formulated by its Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, which clearly mandated state electricity boards to generate, transmit, and distribute electric power from their own technical know-how as the full management of their power from generation to distribution. So something somewhere was having not moving right in right direction, so that the long standing demand of the economists, policy planners, industrialists from all sectors, in fact, people were saying that Indian power sector is in doldrum and one has to carry out some kind of restructuring. And in the famous World Bank report, it all came out very clearly. The law of economics dictates the power to grow by 1.5 times that of GDP. So it's a kind of thumb rule for any sustained industrial development. With the target of 8% GDP growth, power addition has to be stabilized at 12% per annum. Now, this had to be achieved if India wanted to move ahead to remove party and to uplift the people who are below the party line, to bring them into the economic development so that they can also enjoy better living standards. So World Bank report states that power sector does not generate any foreign exchange and has therefore to be financed in a manner as not to cause serious imbalances in countries' external accounts. And that has to be there because it is not going to give us any kind of foreign exchange. So whatever we are going to invest is not going to give us a kind of direct return. But this is a very important condition, a precondition in order to bring about the changes in our country that all of us would like to. Means the infrastructure will improve, all the necessary requirements of industrialization will be fulfilled so that new and better industries come here and they can invest in industries in other areas. But somehow this goal could not be achieved. This tenet of World Bank lays emphasis on negative growth in population. So India could not think of all these things. Improving GDP year after year. We have always been at the positive growth in population. Containing inflation, increasing domestic manufacturing, reduced and competitive cost of domestic production with international level of quality. Now look, these are the very important points that World Bank in its report submitted to the government of India, that see, this was what required from you and this is what have been your achievement. So it was a kind of report card, and this in fact brought about serious changes in our economy, on our state of economy, that went for liberalization, opening up of Indian economy, as I told you, in the year 91, 92, when the foreign exchange condition of our country was very, very bad. We did not have enough foreign exchange to pay our debts. Hardly 2 or 3 months balance was there. So finally, what government of India decided to open up its economy, and that in fact turned out to be a very good decision. Development we are seeing is in continuation of that. So reduced and competitive cost of domestic production with international level of quality, maintaining balance of payment, keeping check on wages and salaries, low import duties on raw material, and being available in plenty, higher manpower productivity. I mean, all these things were required initially at the policy framing stage. So unless government goes in order to formulate its policies, keeping in view all these things, only then the kind of restructuring or the kinds of reforms that are required could be obtained, and a better industrial and infrastructural facilities can be created, could be created at that time. So these are definitely very important points. I think you must have some noting in your mind or with your pen and pencil. All these things are going to be extremely important related to the economy of a country. So Indian economy was a kind of mixed economy. We were not totally closed, but there were certain areas which were totally restricted for foreign investment. No foreign companies can establish or can collaborate even with the Indian companies in many areas. And this was the main region, or the main reason rather, so that we lagged in the required rate of growth, and India was still faring to be a very poor country in terms of its gross national product, in terms of its employment, in terms of its per capita income. All economic indicators were enough to show that we are underdeveloped. Now, this is the GDP club in billions, you can say. Just see at the size. India ranked around at the last 10th. Now the situation is improved. And this data, I think some 15 years back, or like that. And this is the state of affairs of our cities. Now this is going to be, we shall confine our attention to the power supply. Power generated, power supplied, metered bill from power generation to the metering stage. There is certain loss that is beyond our control. And that is going to happen. We can minimize it, but not beyond a stage. But the commercial losses, and which are among the highest in our country in terms of the metered power and the revenue collected, we are lagging behind. In spite of our best efforts, the total losses in commercial losses segment could not be brought down beyond or less than 25%, 24%, something like that, while it was around 8% to 6% in other countries. Now see another view, that what was wrong with our distribution scenario. So the commercial losses or the distribution losses were the prime reason occurring in the distribution sector. Dilapidated distribution network, couple of transformers and plenty of cables busting every day, harassed consumers with poor fault management system, wrong billing, arbitrary billing. We can also say that you approach to the authorities and they can do with the billing anything the way they like, inadequate payment channels, pending complaints, and no one to listen to them. This was the state of affairs in Indian power sector, especially in distribution. A huge workforce, but with no to very little skill level. There was no dearth of people who were employed in state electricity boards, but the productivity of this workforce was very poor. No corporate structure, lack of accountability, initiative, and service attitude, no administrative infrastructure, and unsanitary buildings, offices in very dilapidated conditions. So, this was the state of affairs in the distribution part. Now, in this slide, you can see that finally it is going to be the consumer who is at the loss, and the honest consumer, because he has to pay, but he is not able to get the benefits of all that he deserves to the utility sector. He gets his bills, pays it rightly, but on account of extraneous things that are occurring in the utility sector, the Indian consumer is at the receiving end. So a lot of reforms were done in order to improve the consumer problem. Now, this is the kind of curve that shows that how India has attained highest transmission and distribution losses in the world. Even countries like Brazil, Mexico, South Africa, Indonesia, they fared better than India in terms of the commercial losses or the transmission and distribution losses. And the major component of this was power theft. So it was a kind of, you can say, a better terminology in order to cover up the theft part that Indian engineers, Indian power sector engineers, and state electricity board officials, they started calling it as technical or T&D losses. But the major component of this transmission and distribution loss was theft, power theft, the unaccounted power that people derive from the unmetered electricity that we derive from the service mains, and we don't pay for that. Still, some kind of situation persists in many Indian cities. So you can see we even reached at the level of almost 30%. The transmission and distribution losses touched almost 30%. So this is the kind of culture that has been established in state electricity boards because they were entrusted with the management of the power industry right from generation to the distribution. And this is the culture that they finally established in the Indian power industry. And the final result happened to be huge losses incurring in the state losses finally built up in respective state electricity boards, and they did not have money even to pay for their workforce. Every year, in every 5-year plan, the government will earmark some budget in order to bring out from this red situation. But because of their misorganization, all kinds of wrong corporate and managerial practices, they could not improve their situation. And finally, the government was done with it. So this was what was happening before 1990s. And you can see the state of affairs in Singapore. It has got the lowest transmission and distribution losses in the world, below 5%. And it is not managing only in terms of power sector. In every core sector of economy, in every civic life, the country is simply excelling. So this is how a sector which is managed by the technical people should perform. They have maintained the laws. If you observe very closely from the year 1993, I think till 2000, for almost 7 years, barring 94, there was a slight increase. And that too, I think 0.5%. Almost a decade, the total transmission and distribution losses were below 5%. And that is a remarkable achievement in a democratic setup. Yeah, in the next slide, we get the same headline that India tops the world in T&D losses. See the top countries. Abhishek Kumar Patel wants to join. Japan, Denmark, Germany, even Ghana, an African country, Singapore, they all have below 5%, almost 4%. What about the other Asian countries? You can see Indonesia, 12%, Thailand, even Malaysia, Taiwan, they are all better than in terms of these losses. Now there are certain things that the Indian government and the people who are managing this, the policy planners, lessons from rich countries, Switzerland and France. Switzerland, as one of the richest countries in the world, has adopted conservation in an exemplary way by not adding any generation capacity, but rise in demand is met by efficiency from existing plants, transmission, distribution, and supply networks. So they increase their efficiency in order to meet out the kind of rise in demand. And that is a very different work culture. With effect from 1st July, Paris in France has resorted to switching off the illuminations at Eiffel Tower from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. At different levels in different countries. So is the decision for all other historical monuments. This step could accrue savings of 1300 megawatt of output of electrical energy from nuclear power plants. In Western countries, there was a trend of establishment of more nuclear power because they did require less of a space, no fossil fuels. So if all the other safety and such reasons were all taken care of, and if everything went on smoothly, nuclear power is going to be a very good option, because we can set up very high capacity power plants, and these can function and these can manage very well the base load of the load curve that we yesterday followed very closely. Nuclear power plants are not suitable for the peak load management. They can only operate at base part of the load curve. So if any country has got high capacity of nuclear component, they can carry out their power management very well. So this has been the trend in many European countries, even in Canada also. They rely much on nuclear power. This is certain data regarding the power situation in our country. The peak deficit, the average deficit, the length of the transmission line, transformer capacity, distribution line capacity. T and C losses are the same as transmission and distribution losses, aggregate, technical, and commercial losses. AT and C are nothing but a kind of euphemism that we cover up our inefficiencies in a better kind of terminology, and we call it as AT and C losses. So the major component of this will be the power theft, say at the level of 15% or 18%, and the remaining 10% may be on account of the rural electrification stage, 70% villages, 48% households at below poverty level. So these are the certain data that was obtained in the year 2011-12, almost 20 years after the liberalization or the reforms were carried out in the power sector. Let us see if something is happening in the chat box also. You can post your questions in chat box also, because that will give me an idea that we can discuss or rediscuss or refer back to some other things instead of only moving ahead. So this is going to be a quite long discussion. I don't want to be in a hurry. We can devote enough time. And this is a very interesting historical record of the state of affairs of electricity in our country. You can say that what has been the record at the utility services regarding all consumers like domestic, commercial, agriculture. This much of million units were sold to different consumers. And the total losses were almost 30%. We could account only for 5,47,202 million units. However, from the bus, we exported 7,88,355 million units. So there was net 30% unaccounted. The losses were incurred. Somewhere it was not sold, and when it was not sold, why it was generated at all. So what happened to that? In aggregate, the total losses were 30%. Now we discussed about what was the meaning of this power sector reforms, why they were carried out, what was the effect Their after effect, after they carried out, the situation improved slightly. The generation improved, transmission and distribution also improved. So what are the institutions, or what have been the effect at the institutional level after carrying out these reforms? Because once the state electricity boards were dismantled, there were many agencies, rather autonomous in their nature, were established, and which took over from these ailing, sick public sector undertakings, task of managing the country's power sector. So I think we should stop here and we shall discuss the framework, institutional framework, which were taken over in the last decade of the last century. So who are these workforces which are managing the Indian power industry nowadays with better efficiency, better productivity, and better management at all levels?